1, 2, 3.
Yes, it's the Late Late Breakfast Show with your host, Bernie J. Mitchell.
Are you in?
Are you in? Good afternoon, good morning, good evening, wherever you are in the world. This is episode 91 of the Ilford famous Late Late Breakfast Show, and today is my favourite startup suitcase entrepreneur, Mr. Chris Bradley. So, Chris, what are you known for, and what would you like to be known for?
Ginger hair is one of the things that I'm known for. Other than that is Publicate and probably the teaching that I do at General Assembly on product management.
Gee, Chris, tell us more about Publicate.
Publicate is the simplest way to create beautiful HTML email newsletters.
That sounds gorgeous. Boys and girls, we're going to try and get through this podcast and not sound like an advert, but my overwhelming enthusiasm for Publicate, as I've been an ardent user for 3 years, is it, maybe?
Yeah, I think you've been there right from the start when we had a pretty rough product that eventually got completely scrapped and we started again. So you've been there for both of them.
Oh wow! Would you say I'm fundamental to Publicate's success so far, Chris?
I would say you are actually, Bernie. A lot of the insight and feedback that you've given us has certainly helped to shape the product into what it is today.
Do you think there's a place for me as a consultant to other top level content? Anyway, so I'll get to my point. Can you tell us how Publicate integrates with Trello, which is possibly other than the birth of my son and being married to my wife who's sitting next to me, is the integration of Publicate and Trello was the biggest life changer for me. And how you see people using that, and we can put a link to the show notes in your blog on the Trello blog.
Okay, sure. So the integration that we did with Trello is a power-up that you can add to your boards, which then appears in any card that you create on Trello. So the idea is that it can bring the publications or the curated newsletters or curated web roundups that you can create with Publicate. It can bring those directly into cards on Trello without you having to go to Publicate to find them, copy links, paste into Trello. It'll search your library from within Trello and add the publication straight to the card. So it just means that if you are creating curated content, so newsletters and web roundups as part of a team, it means that you can get everything together in one place, including the communication, rather than it being spread out over several tools.
Where that's working really well for us is at Work Hubs and in show notes and stuff, is the emails we make. We can now have the Trello Power Up cards with the Publicate thing and the MailChimp thing and get it all in one place. So sending everything to one card is a massive time saver. Even though there's like me and one other person doing it, it probably saves me at least an hour of faffing around things.
Exactly, because then you don't have to go and visit Publicate, open the publication, copy the link to it, go back to Trello, paste it into the board. And also the Power Up actually, it gives you a dynamic view of the publication, so you can see the publication in miniature and scroll through it, and you can also, it has some hot links in there so that you can go directly to edit it straight from the Trello card, and also to view the publication as well. So
and I'm sorry to be so tragic, but where it saves me hours and hours is because I don't get distracted by all the other things and go off reading about how Hillary Clinton was caught drinking Budweiser or something. I just can stick with creating killer content. So how did where are people, can you give us some use cases of people that are using that? Because I use it for show notes and newsletters, but outside of my little world of Bernie, where is it going down?
So a couple of main use cases really. So one is like client newsletters. So we have a number of agencies and businesses that send their clients a newsletter on a regular basis that updates them on industry, competition, trends, etc. And their team will be pulling together information, and someone will have to pull the newsletter together and then get sign off for it to be sent to their clients. So as a team, when they use Trello, they pull together all of the content in Publicate. The person creates the publication and adds it to the card in Trello, so that all of the conversation is then around the publication. The sign off can also be done in the comments in the Trello card, and also the planning for what's going to go into it, i.e., what sort of topics need to be included, etc., can all be done from within the Trello card. So that's one. Another is like resource hubs. So that's one we've actually started doing. We've got a board now in Trello that is just for creating resource hubs. So things like the top content marketing blogs, the best free stock images resources online. And the workflow for that is much more simple when you can just attach the publication in draft to each card so that each team member can have a look at it and either suggest new content, suggest corrections to copy or design, or just help with editing it straight from the card in Trello.
If this just popped into my head, I haven't even tried it. Can I access a Publicate? Or how does this work on mobile? Because I know Publicate doesn't. You can't do it on a mobile, but in terms of like the Trello power uppy things, is there anything there? Sorry to put you on the spot. No,
so the Trello Power Up will still work on mobile because it's part of Trello. The view, so the dynamic view of the publication within the card also still works on mobile, and you can view the publication because anything you create in Publicate is mobile responsive.
Yep.
It's just the editor that doesn't work on a mobile device because nobody creates email newsletters using a mobile phone. So that's why we haven't built a mobile app for it, because no one actually is creating. No one's requested to create email newsletters on a mobile app. So you can still view the publication that's attached to the card in Trello on your mobile device.
Yeah, because I'm going on one of my things to try and do as much stuff on mobile as possible, and it is impossible to just for the screen size as well as the technology to do that stuff on mobile. But I'm trying to do certain things on a desktop and certain things on a mobile. I'm tracking that really well, so that's why that popped in there. So back to where does how do I get stuff into Publicate? What ways are people doing that?
So there's a couple of ways. The simplest is you can just copy and paste any link that you find online into your library. You can also actually drag content between tabs. So you know the nice little padlock that you get before a link. If you click and drag that into your Publicate workspace, you can drop that into either the library or the editor of the publication that you're currently editing. Or even simpler than that, we have the Chrome browser extension, so you can just click things as you're browsing the web with you can save things with one click whilst you're browsing the web. And then we've also integrated with Slack, Feedly and Pocket, and very shortly Buffer. So anything that you save on those will automatically appear in your content library for you to then create these newsletters with. So that means that also if you create a team workspace, then you can curate content as a team, which is where the Trello Power Up becomes particularly useful, because you can see what content is being curated and discuss it from Trello.
And are people what are the numbers? Well, not the numbers, but percentages of people using like Feedly to put stuff into Buffer and versus Pocket? Is it? So
the most popular one is definitely Feedly, and then followed by Pocket and then Slack at the moment.
From terms of like how you get stuff in there, what's the difference between using Pocket and Feedly? Because one is, let me get this right, because I use Pocket, but Feedly is more of an RSS reader. And it goes straight from
Feedly. You plug in all of your favorite content sources, blogs, websites, news feeds, Google alerts, into Feedly, and then it's kind of like a filtration process. So you look through all of your stuff in one place in Feedly, and then anything that you save for later, would use the function save for later in Feedly, would then appear in your Publicate library. Pocket is a bookmarking tool. So it's a bit like our browser extension. Anything that you find whilst you're browsing the web, you hit the Pocket button and it just saves it for later.
And what are the advantages or disadvantages of each one?
So the advantage of Feedly is it means you only have to visit one place to catch up on all the latest news and articles from your favourite content sources. And it also has a really nice mobile app which does like this daily news feed where it's like a summary of the most popular posts each day. So within about 10 minutes, you'll have been able to see the main headlines and save the key posts that you want to read later. Pocket has a lovely offline reading app. So if you're browsing the web and you find a load of stuff that you might not have time to read right now, but you want to read it later, then you can hit the Pocket extension and it will save it to the app, which means you can then read the stuff on your phone, whether you've got internet signal or not. And it also reads it back to you. It does if you plug it into another tool, which I think you do, don't you, Bernie?
Oh, I use VoiceStream Reader, which is my main reason for using Pocket, and also in the iOS mobile app. Actually, no, both of them actually. Yeah, on Pocket, it reads it aloud to you.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I haven't used that.
It's been there years, Chris.
Has it? See, hidden features. Well, yeah. So it does that as well then.
But that's my primary reason for using Pocket is because it sends. I use Feedly as well to feed stuff into Pocket and somewhere else, which I've forgotten. Yeah. But I get stuff into Publicate by Pocket, and also from what I send to Publicate, I also send to VoiceStream Reader. So then everything I send out, I get to read, which is a really fast way of doing it.
Yeah.
For I know X-men like me that can listen to stuff at 500 words a minute. So that's Pocket and Feedly. So how are people using Slack? What's the that's something I haven't done yet. So can you go into minutiae detail on this, because everyone loves Slack?
Yeah. So Slack, as you say, everyone loves. It's the new really popular team messaging app, and the way that it connects with Publicate is you can integrate a channel with your Publicate library, your content library. So the way that most teams use Slack is they'll have a channel where they share resources and links that the team should be aware of or should be reading. And if you connect that to your Publicate library, then all of those resources will appear in your library ready for you to use in your curated roundups and newsletters.
And is there... The question I'm stumbling over answering is the relationship between or advantages of using that Slack thing and the Trello thing, or would it just be the same message in each place?
Well,
that was a really ill thought out question. Sorry.
Well, so the advantage of connecting tools like Slack and Feedly and Pocket and stuff to your content library, it means that you without having to do anything extra, using the tools you're already using, you're building a valuable resource of content that can then be turned into web roundups and curated newsletters. Where the Trello plugin comes in is your team is already saving all of that information, which is saving into Publicate. Once you start turning that content into a resource, that resource can be attached to a Trello card, so that if you are planning what should be going into that resource and what sort of content you should be looking at saving, then checklists can be added to the Trello card, or just bullet points of what are maybe the key subjects or the structure or the outline of the curated resource that you're going to create. Then you can attach the curated resource so people can give you feedback on it, maybe on the insight or the quotes or the copy that you're adding to it, the design, etc. And then once it's finished, they can also the sign off and confirmation can also be done in the Trello card. Depends on the process that you have. If it's a team and it's going to it's quite a lot of teams will have a process where somebody is tasked with creating the resource, and then they need to get sign off before it's actually sent out to the newsletter list or to the clients. So all of that can then be handled straight from within Trello without having to keep navigating between the different tools.
That was a great answer to a question I felt was horrific. I'm going to come back to a bit in that in a minute. The last way to get stuff into Trello, into Publicate, is the Chrome browser. Is there anything to add about that? Because where do I find that?
So the Chrome browser extension, if you are in Publicate and you just click on the connect button in your library, that'll bring up all of those ways to add it. And the Chrome browser extension is the first one. So if you just click there, it'll take you through to the web store and you can install it and off you go. The main advantage of using the Chrome, the Publicate Chrome browser extension versus the other tools is that you can actually organize stuff on the fly. So if you are wanting to put your content into specific libraries or folders or tag it, then the Chrome browser extension is the easiest way of doing that.
Okay, I'd highly recommend that because I have like 15 million articles that I've sent there, and it's taken me a year to sort of get my act together on this, but I work really fast because I can find stuff by tag now. Yeah.
Well, when it does, we do also bring in, if you tag anything in Pocket or you tag anything in Feedly, we do also bring the tags through from those other services as well.
That's the next bit I was going to say is for each project and each newsletter, I tag the stuff in Pocket, and I've become religious about that. So then it's now further on through the time warp of Bernie Mitchell, I can go back and reuse stuff. And reference it. So probably I spend more time searching and looking for stuff in Publicate than I do in any other, Pocket or Feedly or stuff like that. So it's a great way of rediscovering things.
Yeah.
So that's how you get stuff into it. So when I'm in Publicate, can you spend a few minutes there, and then we'll talk about how to get stuff out of Publicate?
Okay. Yeah. Sure. So the whole premise of Publicate is to make creating curated resources just to make it the whole process a lot faster, so that you've got more time to spend on what's really important, which is finding good content. So once you've got all of that information in your library, then it's just as simple as drag and drop into the editor on the right. So there's a number of blank spaces. You just drag content from your library into the editor, and then you have full control over any images that are used, titles, descriptions, etc. But all of that stuff is pre-populated to save you time. But then you can edit it after if you want.
I fell in love with Publicate because I just didn't understand how to use MailChimp to format newsletters and stuff like that. And even now, MailChimp's much better at that type of thing. It is still way faster to organize it in Publicate and just copy and paste the HTML and drop it into MailChimp. So boys and girls listening at home, this will save you hours, especially if you don't understand all those little funny codey bits like I do.
Yeah, well, I think like the majority of email service providers like MailChimp, MailJet, Campaign Monitor, etc., they're focused on being on the deliverability of emails, and then they've attached a email editor on top of that, and they're generally very cumbersome and not very user friendly. So it takes quite a lot of time for you to get images, titles, descriptions, and stuff for each piece of content. So, for instance, if you wanted to create a newsletter of here are the top 10 things that I've read this week, and you wanted to put that into MailChimp, to do that in MailChimp, you would have to download the 10 images to represent each of the links, upload them, hyperlink each image. Then for each link, you would have to write a title and write a description, and then wrestle with the layout and the format editor in those mail tools. which it's most people struggle with getting it to look how they actually want. Whereas with Publicate, you've already saved that content, so there's a library or a resource that you can dip into that you've been building over time, which no other mail tool offers. And then it's just dragging and dropping. And when you drag a piece of content into a template, it brings any image that we find at the URL, it brings across the title, and it also brings across the description as well. So you haven't had to mess around with images. It brings in the title and the description if you don't want to make any edits, or what most people do is they leave the title and then they will add some insight or their own opinion into the description.
And you can also resize the images really, really slickly. And what I do a lot is use, how do you say, is it Pablo, the buffer
Yes.
image tool? I use a Pablo buffer image tool which is the only downloading I do really, to write something on there and then upload it to Publicate if the image that's in the picture doesn't work very well. And I love the way you can resize and shape the images. I'd say that's an idiot-proof way of doing it.
Yeah, we are looking. I don't know whether you use Canva, but for tools like image editing tools like Pablo and Canva, we are looking at slicker ways of getting those images into Publicate.
I'd like to not have to download anything.
Yeah, well, that's going to be the plan.
Get it? You heard it here first, lady. Is it here first, or have you mentioned that somewhere else?
No, it is here first. I just hope we manage to actually get it in the product in the next couple of months.
another world first on the Late Late Breakfast Show. So getting it out of the other thing I want to add there is what I've I haven't tracked the response to be very clear, but people have said to me in person, which is maybe worth even more. They really like the way there's a button. You can add a button that says read more here. So it's really clear what the call to action is, like press this here to listen to this podcast or press this here to sign up for this event.
Yeah. So the call to action button is one of the elements that you can add to a publication. And obviously if you're spending the time and effort to curate a valuable resource, then you want to try and drive some action from it. So that's one thing that you can add in, and the latest updates to the product and the next future updates to the product are all about how you can get more customization into your newsletter and your web roundups with the least amount of effort. So we want to make it so that people can create exactly what they want, but without having to wrestle with bad editors, and all in one place, connected to a library. So yeah, you can add buttons, you can add designed dividers, you can add designed headers, footers, and we've also made it so that the call to actions can actually be added to each specific piece of content, which from one of our customers said that they got a 200% conversion rate or increase in click-through rate on content that has the call to action button on it versus doesn't. In the newsletters.
How does the social sharing buttons? How does that? I mean, I know how it works, but does that drive much more traffic? I haven't experienced much success with that.
The social share icons, they are for if you've added a piece of content, you can add social share icons to that piece of content, which means that when someone receives your newsletter or web roundup in their inbox, for instance, they can just hit share on Twitter for that specific piece of content, and it will open up the Twitter share box, and they can share that piece of content out. So if that is a piece of content that's from your own blog or your own website, then it makes it a lot easier for people to share your content straight from their inbox.
And when I send an email newsletter, what do you recommend in terms of? Is it like having 5 columns or one article, or what is there a way that you've discovered on this journey of, a best practice? I can't believe I said that, best practice. Is there a best practice of how to construct an email?
I'd say not too cluttered.
Newsletter, that is. Sorry.
Yeah. So for a newsletter, making sure that it's not too cluttered is important. So having selecting rows where, because email's restricted to 650 width. So the single column, double column, and triple column seem to work the best for email newsletters. And also playing around with the formatting, so maybe having the link and image on the left in a 2-column and text and description on the right, or just having rows of single column with nice airy dividers in between each row are some of the formats that we've seen perform the best.
And what about the amount of text you put underneath something? Because it's mobile responsive, but I've learned that what looks great on my 22-inch screen doesn't look so good on mobile, the way it reformats, and then that's why I put less text in now. But what are your recommendations?
Well, I would say only put text that is valuable into anything, because people are always short of time, especially on mobile devices. So if there is real value to the text that you're putting in, then people don't mind reading a lot of text. But don't put text in for text's sake, really. I would say think about things that people are particularly interested in. If your newsletter is a curated list of interesting reads this week, then what is the key information from each one of those pieces of content that you're adding? Are there any stats? Are there any quotes? Summarizing the key points for people in the description will help them to make a decision of whether they actually want to go ahead and read that further or not.
Which bit do people pay the most attention to? Like the first, say you have in a newsletter like mine, where there's usually have like 4 or 5 articles in it, one on each row. Would they pay more attention to the first one or the last one? Or
there is more attention given to the first sort of 3 or 4 pieces of a newsletter, and then people have a scroll, and then it's generally the last 2. So the middle section is, depending on whether the first couple of pieces have drawn them in, the middle section is where you can sometimes draw some blanks. Okay,
so that's probably, I've put the dead donkey in the middle and the send money here one at the top and the bottom. That's what I should be looking for.
Yeah.
Okay, so now so we've got that. So where can I send my publication when I've made it?
So anything you create in Publicate can be exported as HTML. So that means that if you create an email newsletter, you click copy the HTML code, and then that means you can paste it into the body of any email. So whether it's MailChimp, Gmail, even Outlook, MailJet, any email service provider, you can paste the code into the body of an email on those tools. So you don't have to change, if you're already using MailChimp or similar to send out your newsletters, it means you don't have to change using that tool, because you'll probably already have all of your email lists in there and the stats that go around those. So you don't have to stop using those. You can just take advantage of the more simple way to create those newsletters and keep sending them out through MailChimp or similar.
And you can explain this, how you get you can go directly from Publicate to MailChimp by clicking a button.
Yeah, so we've also integrated with MailChimp and Gmail for the email side, and then WordPress for the web side. And the plan is to integrate with as many services as possible, so that any tool that we have integrated with, you can send it straight there with just one click, rather than having to click copy and then pasting it into the body of the email. It will just send it straight to your drafts on that tool.
The Gmail thing is, I found really useful when I'm in a situation or a meeting, and I'll say to people, "Oh, did you read that article? Did you read that article?" And a lot of those things are already in Publicate. So I've a good example is when a friend of mine did a talk, I collected a load of articles. Really, this is a really quick thing to do. Collected a load of articles in Publicate, and I didn't really have to arrange them very much, because it was, a one-to-one email. Dragged them all across and sent them a ton of stuff for their talk really, really fast. But it arrived in a really nice, easy to read, beautifully looking format, rather than me copying and pasting lots of links and searching the internet and all that type of stuff.
Yeah, that's the benefit of having the content library attached to your to the Curation tool. because then stuff that you found valuable before is already ready for you to use again.
Something else I want to highlight is there's a difference between what goes on an email page and what goes on a web page. And can you explain that a little bit?
Well, so the way to create those in the tool is exactly the same. And once you're in your workspace, it will ask you what would you like to create, and you've got the option to do a newsletter or a web roundup or blog post. So if you start creating an email newsletter, then when you've created it, the export options will all be for email, and the HTML code that's produced from creating a newsletter is email specific. It won't work on the web. And exactly the same with if you choose to create a web version, then the web code is the HTML code is specific for a web and won't work in an email. So you've got to pick which one you want to create. Are you creating something for email, or is it something for the web? And then the export options are specific to whichever one you've picked. But we do have a convert feature in Publicate. So if you've created a newsletter and a lot of the content is something that you would like to actually embed as a blog post as well as having it as a newsletter, then we do have a convert to web page feature. So you can create a newsletter and then turn it into the web format.
Let me ask your opinion on how worthy it is of doing that, because I haven't looked at the metrics yet, but the for our Work Hubs newsletter and for my one, I've started to make the newsletter and then make it into a blog post, which has got a good response from people. And when I say good response from people, like 5 people have said, that's really useful, I can share it now. I don't mean like 50 million people have suddenly caused an uplift in traffic. But what's your opinion on that, or recommendations around that?
Well, I think not everybody is signed up to your email newsletter list. And you do definitely want to be getting as much content on your blog as possible. So if you are creating an email newsletter, then why not also turn it into a blog post that can be added onto your blog? Because if the content's valuable enough to send out to your email list, then surely it's something that visitors of your website would also be interested in reading. And what I'd probably suggest to do is, if people have given you their email address, then you might want to offer them something a little bit extra than just a normal website visitor. So what you could do is, when you create the web version, is you could maybe take off some of the key pieces of content and put a call to action saying, if you want to read more or you want the full newsletter, then sign up to our email list here. So you give them a taster of the content in the web version with a call to action to sign up to the newsletter to then receive the more detailed version in their inbox every week. Great.
And my last thing is, what about, cause you can share it to Buffer and Hootsuite and StumbleUpon and stuff like that. Is it, how does, I know that's just clicking a button is how it works, but what could I expect from sending stuff in that direction?
So the resource that you create in Publicate, if you share it out through social media, with the social buttons that you just mentioned there, it sends a web URL or a web link back to the publication that you've created. So anybody who receives or sees your social share and clicks the link will go through to a web version of it. That's pretty much how that works.
There we go. I've got some more questions to that, but I'm noticed we're nearly out of time, so I'm going to leave you hanging there, ladies and gentlemen. So where can we find you, Chris, and your beautiful publication?
So Publicate is publicate.it, and the Twitter handle is publicate_, and I'm at Twitter at Briskradley, BRISCRADLEY.
Briskradley. Oh, it's so nice to hear you say that. Brilliant. Thank you very much for your time. And we'll put links to, I've been taking extensive notes here, and I'm amazingly going to use the product to create the show notes for the podcast. So there we go. Thanks very much for your time again, Chris. Be careful out there. It is a jungle.
Thanks a lot, Bernie.
Please go to berniejmitchell.com/podcast. Bernie would love your feedback and input.